Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Line. I am still Samuel.
And I might be Charleton.
And today...
Mash that like scrap! Oh, sorry, what are we doing?
I don't know what we're doing.
Well...
They should mash that like scrap.
Yeah, they should mash that like scrap. That seems very similar to, like, the stuff that falls from the sky.
I call it grace.
No.
It's grace like rain.
Oh, got him.
Charlton's.
I'm almost for this thing.
We go hard on these bits. I didn't just come up with that on the spot.
Yeah, we script these out months in advance.
So anyway, Grace Like Rain. It's an old song, but it's also a song that I re-choreographed, which is like kind of my life story here. Of all the songs that we've seen, most of them are songs that I should say, the ones we showed are the few songs that I just choreographed on my own. I don't do that very often. Most of the time, we've talked about it, I work with teams. I take an old song and I redo it. This is one of the first songs where I took and I just like said no to the old choreography and I made my entire new choreography on it. But it was, I wouldn't say it was inspired. It was inspired by, I didn't like that song and so I wanted to do a better one.
That's great. Inspiration by spite.
Yeah, kind of. But again, I don't have very many songs that I do. So this one is 2018. The last one we did was like 2013. So that long gap was me choreographing other things that are better, like Forbearance. Or I don't know what else I did. Hope Song was somewhere. No, Hope Song was in there. What's the other one?
Propitiation?
No, I didn't do Propitiation. That was drama.
Oh.
Anyway, forget all that. So it's one of the few songs I choreographed by myself. Oh, I redid He's Alive, but I mostly just reordered that because that's what I do. I mess with songs. I don't just start from scratch.
His strength is really like taking a song and making it better as opposed to writing the song originally. Like,
as you've seen from my work, I don't write good songs.
No, and it's really funny because like I feel like we complement each other a lot in that way because I'm one of those people who's just like, let's just try things, you know, let's take this spaghetti and chuck it at the wall. And he's like, yeah, maybe we should just not do that.
Yeah, but I like the idea of throwing things at walls and then you take that concept and put it into a better song.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, I feel like we do complement each other in that kind of way. And a lot of songs that I've written, he's kind of taken and
everything to me, he moves, you move.
He moves, you move.
I love taking songs that you throw out there and I make them better.
Yeah. And you know what? They are better off for it.
I love that, man. You give me a lot of grace messing with your songs.
So much that it feels like there's
Raining Men.
rain.
What?
What?
What if Raining Men and All the Bodies Hit the Floor are the same song from different perspectives?
It's totally possible.
This song was inspired a lot from the Gospel of Luke. Fun fact.
Ooh.
I know this is so. This is us lore at this point. So we have a tier list of Gospels, and so both of us agree, and the top tier is Matthew, and then we kind of devolve from there. I like to say Matthew, John, Mark, Luke at this point. Sometimes Mark and John go back and forth from time to time. Charleton.
Yeah, I say Matthew, John, or no, Matthew, Luke, John, Mark.
Yeah.
That's where I'm getting all mixed up.
I love Mark partly because it was a big part of my ministry journey. This is more Samuel lore, where I felt called into ministry at Mark Camp, where I was forced to just study the Bible and not take my outside knowledge and put it in there and just be left with the scriptures. And so a big part of my testimony is Mark Camp. Shout out University and Alan's son and all those people. You're probably not watching. Shout out to you if you're watching down in this comment.
Shout out to those very particular people. Yeah. Probably not amidst our 5 viewers.
Exactly.
Shout outs to our 5 viewers.
But anyway, so I love Mark. That's when I when I redid He's Alive, I actually reordered some of the things to be more chronological to the Gospel of Mark. So this song is more in line with the different moments of grace in the book of Luke. Shall we?
Shall we? We shall.
All right, so I'll let you do more commentary as you wish, because I know the song already.
Well, I mean, you can comment. I feel like that's what we do.
Anyway.
So one of the things I think is really interesting right off the bat is, you know, doing the thing of putting your back to the audience.
Style.
Because the focus isn't supposed to be on the preacher. The focus is on the sinner.
Right. But it's, in some ways, the classic picture book Bible, right? Open the Bible, story happens. So you see the person, like, sharing the gospel of Jesus on the cross.
Yep. And one thing that we'll get into a lot more is like this This
I do love
is
this
like
moment.
is definitely a storybook Bible kind of thing. Yeah, pick up.
That one didn't go far enough. It wasn't clear enough. But I wanted to show that whole how do you show the person falling through the roof of the person, the lame person. But yeah, classic. Those two people, their part's easy. They're done already. Basically, they look at the Bible and say Jesus.
Yep, the classic open storybook format where you get the modern story that it starts with and ends with. But
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But
Who's that handsome man in the top center?
Howard? Yeah. Anyway. So funny looking at all these people when they're younger. Anyway, nostalgia aside. One thing I don't like about this part is that it's a little unclear, but it's trying to emphasize Luke 5, 1 through 11, where Peter's out fishing and then he says, like, your sins are forgiven, when you're like, wait, you're not supposed to say that. And so all of these moments are like, how do you show this person grace? And they're in the earlier chapters of Luke. So this story is also a little bit more obscure, where Pharisee, I don't know how you show Pharisee better, but it's supposed to be like,
Yeah, it's them at the table.
right, where the sinful woman comes in. We don't know her name officially.
I call her Jessica. I'm just kidding.
And it's a little bit awkward, but he's supposed to say, like, you love little, she loves much, something to that effect. And then fast forward to the Garden of Gethsemane, like, real fast forward.
Yeah, the classic, we've done a couple of things now, let's get to the end.
Right? Because it was trying to highlight those three people as moments of God's grace, followed by, like, the means of that grace. And so it jumps really hard forward.
Yep, and here's the good old mockery scene. This is part of the crucifixion kind of sequence that we don't really do often. And then, of course, we'll get into the walking section. Usually it's just you get thrown into the cross, or maybe whipping.
Right. We had a little
This
time in the
actually had a
music,
little
but
bit
it made sense. I think the music's off. It's supposed to be that the drum beat is those hammer beats, but whatever.
That's fine.
Yeah. This is a little bit on the fillery side, Everyone's angry for a long period of time. But this is the part where it tried to line up too, so I admit that this part was filler up to here, where you have hallelujah, person comes forward. Person
Trying to
lame.
set up for that. Yeah, look at that. Look at that lame Lauren.
Yeah, I will say that there's a lot of killing that has to happen at the time to match up with these beats, so I don't know how I'd redo it, but it was trying to emphasize these three individuals were recipients of great grace. And oh, look at that, now we're at the same picture that we had at the beginning of the story.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like that's really easy to miss. This being the picture there. I feel like maybe if there was like a way to signify those three in particular, like give them a hat or something, I don't know.
I know, literally something like that.
Because then you can kind of transfer to this point where it's like, oh, I see, this is that moment.
Right, and part of how it tries to show that is this first one is going back to the miracle where they were healed, but it's like, how do you show the picture of the lame person being healed? And so I think you miss that. And so here it's the picture of them fishing. But again, I think it's not clear enough that it misses something here, I think you still get the ending.
Oh my gosh, you got
reach out to
the reach out.
So anyway, that's the song. Purpose and message. No. So it can feel like just general old Bible story songs and then Jesus on the cross. It did have a purpose. I think it missed in some marks there, but we'll get into that. I'd say the purpose of it was moments of grace. Moments of grace that happen in the gospel and how that is relevant for people today to find grace in Jesus. Basic message in some ways, but using Bible stories, moments of grace.
Yep. And this does kind of fall under like classic Jesus doing things and then getting crucified kind of song.
A little bit.
But it has extra story beats to it that make it a little bit more unique, and it focuses on, like, you got to figure out where the focus of your crucifixion scene or Jesus song, however you want to word that,
right.
You got to find your focus on it. And for this, it's not about, it sounds weird to say, it's not about Jesus as much.
Right, totally.
As it is about, like you said, the moments of grace. It's about these people and how they respond. And like the response is very important.
I would want this song to be done after doing a Bible study through like the beginning parts of Luke. Like it would feel way more profound if people knew that already, which it's very unique. I don't know if I would ever do it that way. Like it, but it hits on those themes so well that without that background and context, it's just a generic song.
Right. And so you get those kinds of nice caricatures, the nice little vignettes of scenes that happen. Like at first, like I wasn't fully sure who the first person was supposed to be whenever I first saw it.
Yeah.
It looks like it's supposed to be the tomb and Jesus being like put into the tomb or something like that. So maybe if there was some clarity there, but otherwise I feel like it gets a lot of praise for, having unique aspects to it and its storytelling.
Yeah, I'd say as we get into praiseworthy aspects, on one hand, it's unique, the style of the lowering of the person. It happens so quickly that it's unclear, and so that's where it goes down in that way. I think it's unique in that it tells certain stories that are less common, but it's not as clear in what those stories are, and so that's where it doesn't follow the lyrics. That's the cool thing. It's like it's its own unique story and has unique moments, but that uniqueness didn't come across with the clarity. So that's my mixed bag of praise.
Yeah. Yep. So by and large, a lot of interesting, unique aspects that I give it a lot of praise for, which I will give it style points for later, in case you're wondering.
Right. That's style.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I like doing stylish things. They're not always clear.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Critiques?
I feel like some clarity on what the stories are, maybe some differentiation with like a hat or something that makes sense.
Right, because they get
those people.
Black scarves that get removed, but something that needs to be added to that where they become that character in a certain way. Maybe that's the characterization. You'll notice this is a relatively newer team when it comes to the presentation of it, so we don't knock it off for that, but it does not help it that it doesn't, I think, get that same impact in some ways. Right. Like the person coming down, like they didn't get high enough, partly because of the people working lifting, and so I think they could get clearer. Maybe it's just too difficult in that way. I don't know.
But either way, no matter which way you paint it, I think it was pretty good. But I would say it needs a little bit of sanding, some spit polish, but I don't know, by and large, pretty good.
I think if you have a speaker that emphasizes that these are from Luke or the reasons that they're moments of grace, I like the beginning a lot, and how it ties back into the end. That's just that middle section of which specific stories these are. I don't know. You could add audio in some ways. You can literally have a person that's holding a sign that says Peter. It's like
there's this thing in human video where people will wear like signs. Around their neck that have like,
greed, rage,
pride,
wrath,
whatever.
Yeah,
but it has always been super cheesy, but like something like that,
cheesy but clear. That's,
cheesy, but clear. The style points crashes, but the clarity arises.
That's exactly what it is, man. Yeah. So theologically, it's cool. I like I said, it follows Luke, so it's kind of interesting in that, and it's pretty basic on the you need Jesus' grace to be forgiven.
Yeah, except I don't think that there were a couple of people reading the Bible in the corner.
Dang, you're right.
In
any of those stories, it wasn't like Bible Adventure Man or whatever, where they get transported in time through the Bible.
Yeah, no, so
anyway, so barring the creative liberty there.
Yeah, no, theologically, I think Scripture is really dense. Mm-hmm. That's one of the craziest parts of the Bible. Is like every single verse is like packed with insane amounts of
connectivity, links and
exegesis that you can do from every single thing.
Yeah,
but. So, you look at each of these stories, like Peter being called while he's fishing. Like, you have so many different things that you can take off of that are all very profound, because this is what God wanted to tell us through this story. And to highlight, the grace that is extended to Peter, and then highlight other places where the grace is extended.
Yeah.
And that being like an overarching theme that appears throughout, especially Luke, but you could say the Gospels in general.
Right.
I feel like it hits that very nicely.
I limited my search to Luke, and I limited it to moments where sin was being forgiven. So the story with Peter, for instance, when he's seeing this miracle and he says, "Get away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man." And you're like, wait, when did sin come into this, picture? And so you see this level of calling Peter to be more and forgiving him. Similarly with the lame person, he doesn't just say you're forgiven, he's like, your sins are forgiven. And Pharisees are like, wait, when did sin show up? And so it tried to pick moments where sin was being forgiven in the stories to emphasize it. Has a little Theological flair.
Yeah, I think it was good.
Clarity. Difficulty.
Mash that like, scribe!
Style. Can you give me some like water effects? Style.
Find something.
It's just a tidal wave. Can you give me like Avatar doing some like water bending? Maybe copyright. I don't know.
I'll figure something out.
I'll figure something. Thank you, future Charleton. So clarity. I don't know. The things that are really cool that I would love to highlight are not as clear as I wish they were. The actual specific stories. I think you're still going to get that it's people getting forgiven of sins and it's about God's grace. I don't know. You don't necessarily get how it's His grace specifically when they don't deserve it. You don't quite.
Yeah, you miss a lot of the nuance for sure, but for the most part, like
I'm gonna give it a 6 because it's fine.
I was gonna give it like a 7.
I think because it's simple and there's more in it that's not clear.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7 just because it's like the points that it gets are for like the things that it's portraying. I actually figured them out pretty easily. Yeah. Now, granted, I may be a bit too deep in the nerd, but I kind of understood that these are the stories that we're talking about, and here's the sinful people and stuff like that. But for a more general audience, because would this be one that you do for a public outreach, or would it be more for a church audience?
I feel like you could do it for both. The non-Christian audience would be the obvious clear message of you need to receive God's grace. For the Christian audience, hopefully you're hitting on more of the specifics of the stories, and so then you can highlight how these all emphasize God's grace.
Right, which is it's kind of where I'm struggling a little bit on the clarity aspect.
Oh yeah, because the non-Christian audience isn't going to know these stories, and that's the part that's lost on it.
Exactly. That I feel like is where it probably gets a few more points knocked off.
And it's kind of in a similar camp to Go would want to genericize it, so whether you know the story or not, you're still going to understand the story, and that's where it fails and falls short on that. Yeah, because you're like, what are they doing? Because you don't necessarily catch that they're fishing, so maybe you need to emphasize
give them
the
fishing
lyrical.
rods.
I mean, no, props would add clarity, lower on style, more in clarity. This classic. So, what did you give it in clarity?
7.
Difficulty. It has cues. You have to get the person hoisted up for falling in the sky. There's long periods of time that you have to fill, so it's not the most difficult song. I'll give it a 5.
Really?
It's a team song that has cues. It's pretty medium.
Yeah, it's pretty average for that kind of setup. I don't know, like looking at it, maybe it's a bit easier than it looks. There are some aspects of it that are like filler. So like, especially, I'll call it the third act. I don't know where we'd actually put the beginning of the third act, but like at Jesus's crucifixion.
I would call that the third act.
That would be the third act. Okay.
Yeah.
So like at when he's actually on the cross until the end of the song, probably the easiest by far. With hardly anything happening for like a straight minute and a half.
The guards need to do some things, but it's pretty generic. Be angry, freeze, go on your cue.
Yeah. But other than that, you got the little vignettes, the little caricatures that you do, I think are a lot more interesting and more specific, more technical with character and stuff like that, which I feel like is where it gets a lot of its points. So difficulty, I give it like a 7.
Yep, that's fair. And style. No other song is somebody falling from the ceiling.
See, this is what you needed to do. You needed to take Lauren and, like, as you lift her up, like, flip her backwards, so there would be a backflip, so it would be a 10.
Oh, dang, so close. Also, like you mentioned at the beginning, the person preaching or teaching is back to the audience. A little style, emphasizing the people's response rather than the person teaching.
Yep.
So, it has moments. Yeah. I wouldn't say it broke a few tiny bounds. They're not.
It walked up to the line and kind of like tiptoed over it a little bit.
Kicked some dirt over some lines or whatever. So, I don't know. It's fine. I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
I give it a 5 again. Just like it's not the lowest on style, but it has some cool moments.
Yeah, I think it has some style. Like a lot of the style that I give it is probably from the selection of stories that were chosen. Because you look in like a lot of mime songs. There are a few mime songs that have fishing.
Blind, lame, deaf.
Blind and lame are like the go-to miracle.
Easy to mime. That's the thing.
Yeah,
lame is next in that list. But so there's a few songs that have lame people, but
yeah, blind, lame, deaf. Those are
and
really
dead.
easy.
Like
and
dead
dead
people show up a lot.
So like you get those, but these ones went to like you got Peter fishing, which is maybe the most common of them, and then you have the lame dude descending into the
getting
building.
His sins forgiven. Yeah,
and like that. Is there even any other song that does that?
Not one. There's lame songs, but there's not.
Yeah, but like specifically that.
Yeah,
story.
not that story. Yeah.
And then
what's fun is not all the gospels include that. Like if you read Mark's account or Luke, that's when you get. I think it's Luke. Anyway, it's falling from the ceiling. Matthew doesn't include it. Which if you're like, tell me about this story. You're like, yeah, this guy showed up and carried on the mat and. Did he fall through the roof? Oh, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, like, I feel like that's a little important, Matthew. Like, that's a pretty interesting thing that happened.
Maybe he didn't want to lose focus on the thing that actually mattered. So anyway. Biblical exegesis, man. All right, so styles. I give it a 5.
I give it a 7, honestly.
It's fine.
It's good. It gets a thumbs up. A bit more above average is what I would.
It's above average of a generic crucifixion song. Yeah. It's about right.
So it's got some little tidbits here that go above and beyond from what would otherwise be pretty generic.
Yeah.
So.
My best, like I said, you could see the kind of progression over this month of different songs that I've choreographed. This one isn't the latest, I think, that I've choreographed by myself, other than Project Understory stuff, which we've already kind of covered. Christ, Coronation, and Consolation. But I've gotten better in choreography, I would say, by myself. I'm way better with people. That's just basically the lesson we've learned this whole month. Fight inside, forbearance, the 4-person fight inside,
the 5-person fight inside, the 6-person fight outside.
The redone forbearance. It's the same 3 songs. I'm only getting those.
There's only 3 songs ever done.
Yes, pretty much. You've choreographed a lot more, which will be fun next week when we get to Charleton's.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when you look at the ones that he has had a hand in, he
significantly more
wipes me off, wipes the floor with me.
Yeah.
When it comes to songs that have been written individually by us, like I do have more songs, just
100.
Simply because I do crazy things with Mime. As opposed to
I do rocks in Mime, so
yeah, no, and it's just difference in like position in Mime, you could say.
Well, and I've always had a team to some degree, so I've worked with that team more. You had a season where you didn't have as many people, so you did a lot more solo projects, and so it's just kind of our Mime journeys going on here.
Yeah,
but we'll get to talk about Charleton lore. You've heard a lot of my angsty teen lore years and all those fun stories that is going to haunt me on the internet for years. But now.
So when you're running for president, people are going to come back to this
yeah, no, I've never
podcast.
This, hey, 2 more years. Because I'm now 33. Crazy, right?
You can run for president. I'd vote for you.
Yeah. I would get at least 1 vote. God, I don't know if I'd vote for myself.
Samuel voting Samuel voting gang down in the comments.
If you would vote for me, go down in the comments. I would not make a good president, let's be real. Even though my name is Cap, king and president of the janitor squad or something like that. I don't know. I never got nominated as president for something. I was captain of the basketball team.
So you got captain of the basketball team, which is basically king, and then you become president of the United States. So that way you get king.
I'll finish the bad acronym that Mark Hannibal gave me when somebody jokingly asked what did CAP stand for, and king and president. Anyways, I'm Samuel.
And I'm not Samuel.
Breaking the line.